Speak quickly or leave me be. Pray, your need is worthy of my time. How can I be of service?
Greetings to you. May Gavalen.
A strange fate brings you hither. A strange fate brings you hither.
Hail, friend, and well met.
Might you spare a moment of your time? Swill-eyed Melan, how may I be of service?
Greetings to you.
What do you need? What do you need? How may I be of service to you?
It is time to turn our eyes north. Will you stay a moment? I must speak with you. Greetings.
Stayment.
Greetings to you.
Greetings, greetings.
Hope is not in vain. A strange fate brings you hither.
Hail, friend, and well met.
Have you come to heed the summons to war? Well met! No dawdling! Speak up or leave me be! Is your need so great that you must bother me?
I did another retreat in Marco Island 2023. It was in October. That is the moment that really changed everything for me. I had a very severe childhood. I was very abused as a child, and those scenarios and everything, they would just come up naturally, and I didn't know what to do with them. I found myself stuck in that loop. I cried a lot. In that isolation, I would contemplate about death a lot, just okay, what would happen if? And I didn't like my life. I didn't see the point in my life. I was very trapped in my thoughts and feelings. I had fears in life overall. Because of anxiety, I couldn't be myself. I couldn't go out in public too much, and I was afraid of people. I would be outside and just get panic attacks, and I just go home because I couldn't talk to people. When I had those meltdowns and panic attacks, I had really sad thoughts. When I found Dr. Joe's work, it resonated with me. And then I ended up buying his progressive intensive workshop, which I did at home. And I did his meditations every day for 6 months. And at the time I started already healing. Everything made sense to me. I started understanding, okay, if I change my thoughts, I can change my feelings, and then I can change my life. And I was so obsessed with this, so I started doing this, and I watched this. And I was like, wow, if he did it, then I can do it too. When I did my first retreat in April, something amazing happened. My heart opened. Really, I saw this shift. I was so happy for no reason. I sat through my whole meditation, and I remember I was like, I don't know, this feels so good. I feel so good in my body. And those destructive thoughts were not there. And after the coherence healings we've done, something changed. And so after the first retreat, I came back home. I was totally different. I didn't have PTSD because I didn't have any flashback memories or any pain in my body or any agonizing thoughts or destructive thoughts. My anxiety levels, they got better. I almost had no anxiety. And depression, I didn't think those thoughts anymore. I felt so much better. I did another retreat in Marco Island 2023. It was in October. That is the moment that really changed everything for me. And during the coherence healing and during the laying down meditation, I had a mystical experience in both of them that again opened my heart even more, and I understood why I'm here. I got that I I'm meant to be here, and I'm a valuable person, and that my life matters, and that I can be in love with my life, and I can be in love with myself. In the healing, I had this mystical experience where like I felt like my brain was healed. I just felt it. I knew it, and I remember after the healing, I kept saying to everyone, like, I feel different. I know it. I know I changed the whole meditation with joy and like gratitude, and because I was so grateful to find this and to find, kind of come back to myself, to my own sense, and be okay with me. I created an amazing opportunity as well within 14 days of tuning into new potentials. Out of nowhere, my old manager from my old work, he just called me. He said, "Are you still looking for a job?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I had those like categories. I wanted to find a job that allows me to travel as much as I want, so I get to work from home and do as many retreats that I want. Because I had a goal. I want to do 3 retreats a year, just to improve and evolve. So I found a job just out of nowhere. I didn't even prepare for an interview. And it came within 14 days of me just meditating. I gave myself a word that I'll meditate every day, no matter what. So since 2023, October, I never missed a day. I love meditating. It changed me. It healed my PTSD. It healed my depression, anxiety. The biggest gift I received from this is being able to love my life again and seeing beauty in just being alive. This work is a miracle for me, for everyone.
Welcome to Beyond Belief. I'm George Noory, and our special guest is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is an international lecturer, researcher, corporate consultant, author, educator, and has been invited to speak to more than 32 countries and various continents all around this planet. As a lecturer and educator, he is driven by the conviction that each of us has the potential for greatness and unlimited abilities. His latest book is called Becoming Supernatural. Dr. Joe Dispenza, welcome to Beyond Belief.
Thank you so much,
It's always
George.
good to see you.
Pleasure to be with
I
you.
get so many great comments about you when you're on Coast to Coast and things that you do. Absolutely marvelous. How'd you get started in all this?
Well, in 1986, I got run over by a truck in a triathlon.
Ouch!
I broke 6 vertebrae in my spine, and I had bone fragments on my spinal cord, and the neural arch of one of the vertebrae was broken like a pretzel. So the typical procedure for that is Harrington rod surgery, which is cutting off the back parts of your vertebrae and screwing in these long stainless steel rods.
They slip them right up?
Yeah, and so I had 4 opinions from 4 of the leading surgeons in Southern California, and I decided against the surgery. And I thought, well, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, and maybe my mind could influence my body.
Of the 4 opinions, how many told you to not do the surgery?
No, all 4 of them said Harrington rod surgery is the only option, otherwise you'd be paralyzed.
All right, so you went against the total grain there.
So I went against convention, and in 1986 that wasn't too common, and it worked. And so I just made a deal with myself that if I was ever able to walk again, I'd spend the rest of my life studying mind over matter and the mind-body connection. I've been doing that since 1986.
You healed yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel now?
I never have pain in my back. I'm super active, but I'm not wired for pain either. And that got me on the journey to ask bigger questions, like how did that happen? I mean, and I couldn't find the answers in typical conventional journals or books. I had to start studying the new sciences like quantum physics and neuroscience and neuroplasticity and epigenetics and psychoneuroimmunology. And all of those sciences point the finger at possibilities. So And it has become the contemporary language of mysticism. And when you combine those different branches of sciences, you begin to realize that people can begin to make significant changes in their life and in their health, that we're not hardwired to be a certain way for the rest of our lives, or we're not doomed by our genes. We're marvels of adaptability and change. And so the next question is, how do you do it? So I started studying people. That had spontaneous remissions. I thought if it happened to me, could it happen to anybody else? And so I traveled to 17 different countries and interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people that were treating conventionally or unconventionally. They were staying the same health-wise or getting worse, and all of a sudden they got better. And I just wanted to know what the cause was that produced that effect. So I wrote my first book called Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind, and I talk about what those principles are in terms of how people can heal, that the mind and body are so connected. So then I thought after that, well, if I now know what those people are doing, and it's common, and it's unanimous.
And you're seeing some denominators.
Yeah,
aren't you?
exactly. So now can we reproduce it? Because science is about replication. So then I started teaching it. I started saying, okay, these are the 4 principles. Let's see if we can demystify it, and gave people the opportunity to begin to practice it. And it took a couple of years, but then all of a sudden, we started seeing some really big changes, not only in people's health, but in their lives. And now I knew then that when they were beginning to have those effects, like in a weekend workshop, that there were some internal changes that were going on. So I thought, if there's a subjective experience where a person's having a transcendental moment, can we begin to study it objectively? So I gathered a team of neuroscientists and researchers, and we began the measurements. And in the last 6 years, we've done thousands and thousands of measurements. We've done 8,500 brain scans, measuring people's brains before they come to a 4.5-day event to see what their brain is like when they start, and then go through 4 days of training and see what it's like at the end.
I bet it's illuminated at the end, isn't it?
Illuminated, we can talk about that, but there are significant changes that were taking place that showed me it wasn't just in their mind, it was in their brain. And then we started measuring people during the transformational process. What's going on in their mind? Can we see changes in real time? And we started gathering more information about how to do it. And when people start to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier. And I also realize what doesn't work as well. And so then we've done thousands and thousands of HRV measurements and teaching people how to self-regulate and begin to create more heart coherence.
So you're getting a science out of this, aren't you?
Well, science is the language. The moment you start talking religion or culture or tradition, you're going to divide an audience, because as soon as someone hears a word that intimidates them, they're going to shut off.
That's right. They tune in or tune out.
Right. But science, is just a great way to create community. So we've measured immune responses, and we've seen that people can literally in 4 days begin to strengthen their immune system by 50%. We've measured gene expression. We now know that in 4.5 days that people can signal the gene that reduces cancer and tumors in people's bodies, the gene for neurogenesis, to grow new neurons in response to novel experiences and learning, not just making new connections, but growing new neurons. The gene for stem cells to become activated to go to damaged tissues and repair them.
Really is amazing.
All kinds of significant changes. And we've measured telomere lengths, and we've seen that people who do meditation for just 60 days, 74% of those people lengthen their telomeres. And
74%?
And telomeres are the little shoestrings on the end of their DNA that tells you your true biological age. So imagine somebody's telomeres lengthened by 10%. They get 10% of their life back.
Yeah.
And so we're beginning to realize that you don't have to be a Buddhist monk, that you don't have to be an academic or a scholar, you don't have to be a minister or a rabbi. The common people around the world are doing the uncommon. And I now know that if you give people sound scientific information and they begin to learn it, every time you learn something new, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is.
Absolutely.
And the latest research shows that just 1 hour of concentration on one topic doubles the number of connections in certain areas of your brain. So, but if you don't review that information, you don't repeat it, you don't think about it, those circuits prune apart within hours or days. So learning
they fade away.
Right. So if learning is making new synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining them. So what's the relevance? Well, if you get a community of people together in a room and you deliver the proper information, and then you tell them to turn to the person next to them and explain what they're learning, once they start engaging the other person and they start thinking about it and talking about it, they're causing their brain to fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations. And whenever you make your brain work differently, you're changing your mind, because mind is the brain in action. So if you keep reminding them of what they're learning, in time they begin to install the neurological hardware in their brain.
I love it.
In preparation for the experience. Now, if you set up the conditions in the environment and you give them the proper instruction, a certain
That's important.
That's important. They have to get their behaviors to match their intentions, just like any skill. Get their actions equal to their thoughts. Get their mind and body working together. When they do, they are going to have a new experience, and it's going to change them. And experience enriches the circuits in their brain philosophically, and then all of a sudden, the end product of an experience is an emotion. And the moment you feel more whole, the moment you feel more unlimited, the moment you feel more worthy, the moment you feel that emotion, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understanding. You're now working together. And the end product of that is we begin to change our genetic expression. So here's the point. If you've done it once, you should be able to do it again, right?
You would think.
So as you begin to repeat the experience over and over again, you're going to neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you've done something so many times that your body now knows how to do it as well as your mind, now it's innate in you. It's second nature. It's who you are. It's automatic. It's effortless. Now you're beginning to master that philosophy, and it's who you are. You're being it. Our job then is to go from philosopher to initiate to master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, and knowing it by heart. And we have all the biological and neurological machinery to do it.
Let's go to one of your workshops, Joe.
Stepping into the practicum, right, and the skill, and it's one thing to study, rodents in a changing environment. It's another thing studying people changing their internal states and being able to sustain those internal states. So that's the practicum that leaves the philosophical behind. So if you have philosophy or theory and you initiate it, that initiation then should lead to some type of mastery or skill.
So what happens internally when the energy hits the head? There's light, there's a very bright light. You no longer need your vision, but because you're human, you're still trying to see. It's really hard to describe what happens. There's a lot of light. You can feel the currents. You can feel the blast. You can feel the movement, but you can't really put a name to it.
They are having an inward experience that's greater than their trauma, their diagnosis, their fear. Whatever's happening between their ears is more real than anything that's happened in their external environment. Her sympathetic nervous system has switched on, and instead of switching on like being chased by a predator, it's taking all that energy stored in the body and it's driving it up to the brain. And when it goes on, all of a sudden the brain goes into gamma and she's aroused from the inner experience. But it's not from a predator or from a danger, it's from the divine.
What a great audience. Now, what was going on there?
Well, when we started on this journey, and I have a great research team, you saw some of them there, we never thought that we would be recording what we're recording today. And in fact, there's a formula now that we've figured out. And we could actually predict the moment a person is going to go into a superconscious state. So we do certain different meditations to begin to activate latent centers in the brain. So let's say a person has a betrayal or a trauma or a shock. Do you know, the stronger the emotion that you feel from some situation in your life, the more altered you feel inside of you.
Of course. Yeah.
The more altered you feel inside of you, the more you pay attention to the cause, and the brain freezes the image and takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. So the stronger the emotion you feel, the more long-term memories you create. So now, that's branded neurologically in the brain, and it's emotionally conditioned in the body. So people tend to think neurologically. Within the circuits of those past experiences, and then they tend to feel emotionally within the boundaries of those chemical events. And how we think and how we feel, George, is our state of being. So most people are defined as an identity by their past memories. So then the question is, how do you change that? Because the strong emotion could actually downregulate a gene that can begin to signal a disease.
Right, right.
So then, when we begin to induce these states where a person is going to have a transcendental moment, there's this very significant change that takes place in the brain. And all of a sudden now, 95% of who we are as a personality by the time we're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious attitudes and beliefs and perceptions that function like a computer program. So most of the mind is stored in the body. So 5% of our conscious mind is working against 95% of what we've memorized subconsciously. So what's an example of that? Well, an example is you may not remember a phone number. Remember, we're old enough to know this. You pick up the phone, you look at the receiver, and you dial the number.
Right.
You couldn't remember it consciously, but your body did it so many times that it knew how to do it as well as your mind, right? So that's who we are subconsciously. So the trauma is stored in the body as well as in the brain. So then when a person begins to activate these latent systems, energy begins to travel right up the spine, and we can actually predict the moment's going to happen. We actually say, when scientists come and study us, we'll say, she's going to pop. What do you mean?
And you watch that happen.
I always say, and she's going to pop in 5 minutes here, you watch. And all of a sudden, that energy that's stored in the body begins to move right up the spine, and it goes to a little gate at the brainstem called the thalamic gate. and that gate opens up, and the sympathetic nervous system switches on, and now the body is driving energy up into the brain. It hits the certain areas of the brain, and the brain goes into what's called gamma brainwave patterns. That is a superconscious state.
What's amazing, Doctor, is you're one of the few people, if not the only one, who explains how this works. Nobody else is doing that.
Well, you should sit in on some of our brain science meetings, because there's cussing going on and arguing, because you can't find this in textbooks. This is supernatural, right? So once that energy goes into the brain, I'll give you an example. The brain switches on to such a degree that those measurements you can't find in any neuroscience research. These people are going into such coherence in their brain. Now, coherence is order. But like most normal coherence in the brain, picture a room of 1,000 people and everybody clapping at the same time. They're applauding at a show. That's incoherence, right? It's noise, it's out of
I love
order.
that sound, by the way, if I'm on stage.
Yes, of course. Now, normal coherence, picture the room and every fifth person in that room claps at the same time. That's kind of a brain that has a normal amount of coherence. But when we were measuring this super coherence, picture the entire 1,000 people clapping at the same time to the same rhythm very quickly. That orderliness creates a lot of energy, too, in the room. So the brain goes into these ecstatic states. That person is having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. Now imagine if your senses were heightened by 25% right now. Everything you're seeing, everything you're hearing, everything you're smelling.
It's heightened by 25%.
Everything you're tasting, everything you're feeling. If your senses are heightened by 25%, so is your awareness of everything around you.
And that's huge.
And you can't have awareness without consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without energy. So all of a sudden, the brain switches on. They go into these high states of gamma. And the amount of energy in the brain, I'll give you an example. Most people, if we're measuring their vision, if we're measuring their liver enzymes, if we're measuring their height, if we took 1,000 people and we measured them, you would see this curve called a Z-curve or a bell curve. You draw a line right down the middle and you divide it equally in threes. That's 3 standard deviations above normal, 3 standard deviations below normal. That makes up 99.7% of the population. Doesn't matter what we measure.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's just there.
Okay, so our measurements in energy in the brain is 200 standard deviations outside of normal, 300 standard deviations outside. outside of normal, 400 standard deviations outside normal. That means you have to draw another 197 blocks, and that line just keeps getting smaller and smaller. That amount of energy, that person, that inward event is going to reorganize the circuitry in their brain, because that's what experience does, and it's going to produce a profound feeling. Now, that feeling is not fear, it's not anger, it's not hostility, it's not pain, it's not sadness, it is bliss. So now, the moment the person feels this elevated emotion, their heart goes into super coherence, they're feeling tremendous love, and the strong emotion is causing them to pay attention to the pictures in their mind. And in an instant, it's like their past is washed away. So all of a sudden, we're seeing instantaneous changes with health. A person's psoriasis goes away in an instant. A person's working with a spinal cord injury is now walking without crutches. People with Parkinson's disease, their conditions are returning back to normal, because the level of energy that's running through their nervous system is giving them a biological upgrade. And now we're seeing the same patterns, we're seeing the same brain scans, we're seeing the same changes in health, and the side effect of it is the person is completely changed as an individual. They're saying, I feel so whole, I feel so happy, I feel so free. And I think that is the natural state of being.
From your workshop, there's a lot of experiences like this.
Imagine 750 people in the room. They're overcoming themselves, and they start activating this center, their center of oneness, their center of wholeness. And as the heart starts getting coherent and it starts creating elevated emotions like gratitude, people are feeling the emotions of their future that begin to create holism and oneness. If the environment signals the gene, and the end product of an experience in the environment is called an emotion, when you embrace these elevated emotions, you are literally selecting and instructing new genes ahead of the environment. And we are going to turn on new lights and turn off old lights, signaling new genes in new ways.
During meditation, my heart just opened up. I was sobbing with joy. And I was having these waves and waves and waves of love and gratitude.
I can only describe it as like a bolt, like a lightning bolt of energy arrived in my heart. Didn't come sort of up through the center or down. It just came out through my heart and up through my head.
I was very conscious of the fact that I don't expect to see anything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started feeling this weird, strange shaking all over my body, but it was getting stronger and getting stronger.
And there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They are being baptized by the divine. And when that occurs, they feel so whole and so in love with life and so in love with themselves, it's impossible to want. How can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything. And that's the moment the magic happens, over and over again. And there is a biological, neurological, genetic upgrade in that person. And when that occurs, you will feel so connected and so whole, you no longer experience separation. Imagine the heart is in super coherence. And when that heart starts to beat in rhythm, and they're sustaining it, all of a sudden that field starts to expand. That energy starts to become very coherent, like dropping a pebble in water, after pebble, and it's creating this wave.
Joe, why is it so emotional for people? My God, they were breaking down, crying.
Yeah, I know it probably scares a lot of people, but they're not in any type of pain.
No, it looks like it's glee.
Yeah, so God, we spend so much of our lives, George, 70% of the time, according to the research, living in survival, living in stress. And living in stress and living in survival is when your brain and body are out of balance. And when you're in survival, you're always anticipating the worst thing to happen in your life. And they don't know how to open their heart, because in survival, it's not a time to open your heart. If you're being chased by a predator, it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to sit still. It's not a time to go within. The survival gene is switched on. You have three choices. You run, you hide, or you fight. People then close down their heart because they don't want to be vulnerable. So we teach them, we partner with the HeartMath Institute, and we teach them how to self-regulate. We teach them how to activate the center and how to begin to trade guilt or sadness or pain for gratitude and worthiness and a love for life and a joy for existence. And just like anything else, if you start practicing and you're knocking on the door, once that center begins to open up and your heart begins to change, it's an amazing phenomenon. The heart begins to release a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin
makes you feel good, doesn't it?
It's the love chemical. Now, we've measured oxytocin in our students. In 4 days, some of them have 200 times the amount of oxytocin.
Whoa.
Now, oxytocin, according to the research, once it's in the circulatory system, rushes right into the amygdala. The amygdala is the survival center in the brain.
That's that reptilian brain,
it's
right?
It's that little almond-shaped part of the brain that's always scanning the environment to determine danger. And so there's 4 different emotions that the amygdala is wired for: aggression and anger, fear and anxiety, pain and suffering, and joy and love. So the moment oxytocin is released into the circulatory system, it shuts the lights out for anger and aggression. It cools the circuits off for fear and anxiety, and it lowers the volume to pain and suffering. And the only emotion the person can feel is a true love for life. In fact, the research shows that when oxytocin levels are elevated just slightly, it's impossible to hold a grudge. In other words, why would you want to trade this feeling for anyone or anything? You would say, I feel so great that I won't judge, or I don't want to lose this feeling. So when oxytocin is released, it signals a chemical called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical called endothelial-derived relaxing factor. Now, it's just a big word that just means it causes the arteries in
expand,
your heart,
right?
and your brain just to open up. So you're getting more energy and more blood flow, and your heart is literally feeling full. And with that comes an energy or an emotion. So you feel so grateful, you feel so blessed, you feel so whole, that you can't want anything. You feel like you have everything. You feel blessed. Now, I call that the natural state of being. So most people don't want to take the time to get beyond their fear.
Why not?
Because some people, well, many people, they get caught in these loops. They have those events, feel like a failure.
You're going to be one.
You're going to think you are a failure.
Sure.
Right? So if you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings become the means of thinking, then you're thinking in the past. So people get caught in these loops. They think certain thoughts. Those thoughts make certain chemicals. They feel like a failure. The moment the brain checks in with the body and says, yeah, you're feeling pretty much like a failure, you'll generate more thoughts equal to how you're feeling. So the thinking and feeling and thinking creates a state of being. So then when people get caught in these loops, what happens is they get happy being unhappy. Because the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before.
Right.
So then the moment you say, I'm going to give up my guilt, that means you're going to leave everything familiar and known in your life, and you're going to step into the unknown. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment because you're no longer in the known. You're in the unknown. So people, they feel that uncomfortableness. They can't predict or know what's going to happen. They're in this void. And the body, which has been conditioned to be the mind, says, you've been feeling this way for the last 25 years. And so the body starts sending signals back to the brain to influence our thoughts. Well, if we respond to those thoughts as if they're true, those same thoughts lead to the same choices lead to the same behaviors create the same experiences, and the same experiences produce that same feeling or an emotion. A person says, this feels right.
Yeah.
No, that feels familiar. Going from the old self to the new self is a neurological, biological, chemical, hormonal death of the old self. And most people don't know how to change their internal states without relying on something outside of them. They'd rather take the pill, the drug, the drink. They'd rather go shopping, gambling, whatever.
Yeah.
They'd rather distract them from the true essence of how to change, because most people don't understand that they have the ability to change. So when people start to connect, when that heart starts to become more coherent and it starts to beat more orderly, the energy is moving into their body and they feel lifted. And if it opens up all the way, we've seen this thousands of times. Well, we've seen, we've seen so many permanent changes when this particular experience happens. We've seen people that were blind from birth see again. We've had plenty of people that have lost their hearing get their hearing back. We've seen tumors disappear in 1 week. We've seen people with crutches come with all kinds of ataxias and spinal cord injuries leave an event without any assistance. And so we're seeing all kinds of crazy things, and it's like a biological upgrade. It's huge. It's huge. So I have to tell you that I'm probably more shocked than anybody, number one.
You didn't expect it to work this way?
I didn't expect that I would see this in my lifetime. And, you know, it's like a 4-minute mile, you know? Once the 4-minute mile was broken, George, I mean, everybody broke it after. It was a change in consciousness.
That's right.
So we're seeing like we've pierced this veil, and people are no longer saying it's impossible for me to heal. In fact, if we get somebody on the stage, like you saw, and they tell their story of how they've overcome stage 4 cancer, and they don't look like a movie star, and they don't look young and buffed and dressed perfectly. They look like a normal person.
And it's the real deal.
It's the real deal. And you're listening that it wasn't pretty, that they lost a lot of things. They lost their job. They went bankrupt. And they were at the bottom of the barrel, and they turned that battleship around. You're going to have to scratch your head, and we put up the brain scans, and we put up all the measurements to show that's possible. You're going to have to scratch your head and think, well, if that person can do it, so can I. So just like an infection spreads amongst the community and creates disease, you get a group of people together, I believe that health and wellness can be as infectious as disease.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, there's a moment, you know, in our workshops. You know, I now know that when we get a group of people together, the first day is about overcoming yourself. And I can tell you, after looking at all those brain scans, you and I are at our absolute best when we get beyond ourselves. And the process of getting beyond self, getting beyond and disentangling from those programs and those emotions, it creates a lot of disturbance biologically and energetically. And so most people, when they come up with this process of change and there's all this chaos, they quit.
Yeah.
They say, I just can't do it, it's too much. But if they're with a group of people and I'm pushing them, and they get numerous opportunities to connect, all that disorder, all that chaos is just unpredictable order. There's going to come a moment after that first day where it's going to start to organize. And when it does, it's like lights going on. All of a sudden, everybody starts in training. We're doing really uncommon and supernatural things. And I believe that that's our birthright. I believe that's who we are when we're not caught up in our programs.
Who is Anouk?
Anouk is a woman that I met about 10 years ago, whose husband went to the tallest building in Rotterdam and jumped off the top of the building and committed suicide.
God.
And
she never saw that coming?
She never saw it coming. He just left on a Sunday morning and never said goodbye to her, never just said a quick goodbye to the kids. She was in the shower. He was a successful attorney, and he just took his life. And the event threw her into a very strong tailspin. Now, that makes sense because an event like that is going to change your internal state, right?
Forever.
Forever. Well, almost forever. And then you're going to remember the event where the police officers show up and deliver the news. And the problem is that the shock or the trauma like that causes you to continuously remember the event.
Oh my God, it's
and
painful.
So you start producing the same chemistry in your brain and body
over
as if the event was. Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at Anouk from Supernatural.
I made a decision to start meditating daily, and I started the work first on my own. And then I started talking with people about it, and they were supporting me. I would start meditating in the evening around 9:30, and then I would sit with it till I really felt I'm whole, I'm having more energy, I'm joyful, I'm a happy person, I can do this, it will work. All these changes that I had to tell myself. If not the chemo, then why not try to heal myself?
Joe, that doesn't look like a woman whose husband jumped off a building.
I tell you what, I mean, that woman, it took her a couple years to change, but after that whole event, she wound up in the hospital, was paralyzed in both legs with a very serious neuropathy.
My God.
Then she developed these esophageal and mucous membranes ulcerations in her mouth, her throat, her
She was falling
esophagus.
apart.
Yeah, she had. Then she developed cancer, and the doctors told her that she had a certain amount of time to live. And she came to an event, and she's a psychotherapist, a very brilliant psychotherapist, and it all made sense to her.
I have no doubts at all at this point that this works.
I think I do have doubts, and I think I have healthy doubts. I don't know that we can live forever. Although we have the gene for immortality, I don't know. I think it's healthy, George, to take a methodical approach. In other words, you heal yourself, and then you ask, can I heal somebody else? Then you witness somebody else be healed. Then the next question is, can I heal somebody on the other side of the planet? Well, consciousness is non-local. What piece of knowledge or information can I integrate into my next experience? So I think it's an evolution. It's unrealistic to say you're going to be an astronaut or go to the moon without the training, right? So I'm very careful about a very methodical...
You have to be ready.
And step by
That's the
step,
thing.
right? You got to go methodically, step by step. So I've been super patient in this process and getting people to certain levels without going too fast. Because the moment you do that, it's going to shut certain people down or it's going to discourage them. So I do my best to move a community of people all at once without leaving anybody behind.
That. I wanted to be a national broadcaster all my life since I was 19 years old. It never would have happened if I didn't prepare myself for it.
Exactly.
I had a goal, I had a direction, that was all fine. But you really have to be ready for it when the time comes, don't you?
Absolutely. And it's life is the stage, and taking a little time every day and closing your eyes and disconnecting from your environment, sitting your body down and making it be in one place without eating or smelling or tasting or feeling or seeing, and not being on a schedule to rush to any event in your future or think about your past. That is the meditative process. And just like an actor rehearsing her role or his role, who do you want to be when you open your eyes?
Yeah.
And just get into that state and then maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And if you can, you're going to see those synchronicities and those serendipities and those opportunities and those coincidences happening around you. And now you don't have to go anywhere to get it. It's kind of coming to you.
Yeah,
and I
that's
think
right,
that's
it's right there.
That's
and
the beauty.
before you heal the body, you heal the mind, don't you?
You cannot have a healing without a spiritual healing. It just is impossible.
Joe, thanks for being on Beyond Belief.
You're welcome.
You're one of a kind, my friend.
Thank you.
How many people have you helped in your career?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea. I actually have no idea.
Whether it's one or a million, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I listen.
You know that?
I sleep well at night because I now know that we're helping people, and that's what matters to me.
That's what matters all the time, helping people. And that's what he does. I'm George Noory. Thanks for watching Beyond Belief.
A lot of people like talk a lot about living in LA, and so I've been in LA for 3 years, and I wanted to talk about this because, and obviously this is gonna be biased because I like living in LA, like I live here, but a lot of people say a lot of bad stuff about LA, and like people say LA is toxic. People are just like clout chasing, it's too expensive, traffic sucks, and all that stuff. But okay, and first of all, that stuff is everywhere. Like the social stuff, the people sucking, people being fake or whatever, people trying to like social climb. Okay, like that's everywhere. That's in like corporate America. That's at McDonald's right now. You know what I mean? That's happening right now. So like that stuff is everywhere. And second of all, um, this is how I look at living in LA, okay? If you are playing, okay, I play a lot of video games, so just bear with me here, okay? When you play, okay, so you can play a game on easy mode or hard mode, okay? If you play on easy mode, it's an easy game, it's not hard to beat, and then when you beat it, like, maybe you get, like, 100 golden coins, okay, sure, okay, just bear with me. But when you play the hard mode, it's a lot harder and more difficult. But at the end, you get a lot more gold coins than the person who did it on easy mode, okay? So you get better rewards, better loot, better treasure from playing the hard route than playing easy. And that's really how I look at LA is like, yeah, gas is very expensive here, rent is very high, food is very expensive. A lot of, people are going out and stuff. A lot of temptation is in LA. That's very real. There's a lot of temptation in LA. But at the same time, LA and New York are like kind of like the hardest places to like support yourself and like do your thing, because just the circumstance of living there is like more demanding and more difficult and like requires more resources to do well. But you just get more loot from it. And I just feel strongly about that just because I really like LA. And I don't even really know what I think I just wanted to share that analogy with you, honestly, that like everything that's hard has like some good payout, usually, hopefully, right? But yeah, I mean, and especially for someone like myself working in entertainment, I don't know if any other people who are in entertainment do that, but I've started to say that now. I don't say I don't say, I told somebody that I was a corn star at dinner randomly. I was with my mom on Mother's Day and I was sitting at a bar and she was like, "You look familiar. Like, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a corn star." And she was like, "Really?" My mom was laughing. But yeah, if you're working in entertainment, like, where else? Like in Idaho? Like, I don't know. Oh, and also, here's another great thing about LA is the competition. Like, competition is not bad. It's important to be around people like who are doing what you want to be doing or are like at a level what you're trying to go to because you get to learn from people. It's not bad that like, I don't know. And obviously you can be someone who because there's also like negative competition in the form where like people aren't happy for your success, right? But like same in college, same in university, you do better on a test than your friend kind of like, snarky with it, or like, oh, it's like cool kids club. Like, yeah, that happens on college campus. That happens in where like everything that people complain about in LA is just normal that everyone goes through every day in like other parts of their life. But like in LA, it's just like we're so out of touch out here, and I also say that myself. Like, it's just like, you're just like more out of because I'm just surrounded by like influencer world, and I love it. I honestly love it. I think being an influencer is freaking great. It helps so much with everything else that I want to do and like do. But I mean, yeah, I love it. And like I don't want to be like a biggest fish in the room. Like, yeah, I do. That's why I work really hard, but like I never am because I'm just always working on it, and like I get to learn from people who just like are doing great, you know, people that like you see people and you're like I want that for myself. I see that for myself. I see myself getting all that money. I see myself in the nicer cars. I see myself in Uber Black and like fancy dinner expenses, and I see myself in movies, you know? And I just really like that about LA. I really, really appreciate being around people who are like-minded, because as I've gotten deeper into my career, I also do recognize that like as I go more in this one direction, like other directions don't align with me so much. Like, you know, there's not really, you know, like I'm not super duper close with like a lot of people that I grew up, and I think that's everyone, right? Like everyone, like you're just growing up. So, and this is also me. I'm 22, and I know it says me growing up and like whatever. But like I can't, like I would rather be talking about, if you're a football player, you want to talk about football. Like you don't want to talk about golf unless you're trying to like relax. But like you know, I'm like a football player trying to talk about football. So I don't get super. Is my lip like? No, it's just a shadow. But I also catch myself not being like as interested in like a lot of other stuff. Like when someone's talking about work or something like that, it's just like know that it makes me better at it. So I just don't even want to like entertain any other stuff that doesn't align with me super well, because I know that that brain power can be allocated elsewhere. And that's how I think about that. And yeah, I've spoken about this, but I never really felt like creative growing up at all. Like until my friend Harry said that like comedy takes creativity, and I was like, oh my God, you're a genius. And shout out Harrison. Love Harrison. But being in LA, it's just like everyone is really creative, and they're more creative than you, and they're actually doing something about it. Most people, right? Most people. You would hope. But yeah, I don't know. And of course, this is just, you know, this is just, you know, this is just a guy talking about it, but I'm very like driven to be successful, so I like being around people who are doing stuff in the field I'm doing it, you know? Like I don't know, like you see people with like dope clothing brands and like huge personal brands, and they're starting businesses and they're blah blah blah, and it's just like cool. I just like that people are hungry, you know? And I think there's a lot of slackers everywhere, but like everywhere there's slackers. But but like people who are like dogs, you know what I mean? People who are out in LA just like being dogs, like just running shit, like it's just inspiring. So I just feel inspired by like all the success around here, around me, you know what I'm saying? And it's dope. And if you're thinking about moving to LA, like I don't know. Yeah, my friend Abby always said, and this always stuck with me. I think I tell Abby this, but I always think like he always said like, don't make decisions out of fear, and that's just like so real. And yeah, that's how I feel about that. So if you want to make it happen, I mean, you could do, you know, you can pretty much be doing this stuff from anywhere, right? But you know, also LA is LA for a reason. So there's that. But and the weather's great out here as well. I'm from Arizona, so Arizona and Chicago, so like two very hard extremes, but California weather is like perfect, and everyone looks good. Everyone's like cutie pies out here. And yeah, I personally vibe a bit better out here, and like comparing LA to New York, because I did spend some time in New York, and I'm from like I spent the second half of my childhood in Arizona, so I am more like chill, kind of West Coast, need my space, like stuff like that, and LA has that, as opposed to like a New York where it's like live in a shoebox and like it's dirty and like you know. That's that. So that's my opinion. That's my honest thoughts about LA. Yeah. I love you. Thanks for watching, and get this beanie on www.swagnightmare.com. Beanie is now available. I love you. Bye-bye.